Joe, I'm just so happy to once again have you with me and on Julie Whitney Scott Presents and to talk about theater. Let's talk theater, Joe.
Right. Sounds
Now,
good.
I've already given our audience a glimpse of who you are and your experience that you've had in the world of theater. And I would like for you to just briefly, just to tell them, like, what, first off, made you even want to be in theater?
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, a male deciding he wants to be in theater sometimes has a lot of challenges, not only in society, but with his schoolmates, with maybe his parents.
Mm-hmm.
May have some kind of judgment on men who perform or want to be on the stage. Talk to us a little bit because I think it's important that we talk about those things, because there are youth out there that are interested in the theater, especially males, and they're kind of like, I don't want to do that because of sometimes the stereotypes that come along with if they want to be on the stage and if they want to sing and if they want to dance. So
Right.
I wanted us to, let's talk on this Let's Talk Theater show. Let's start off with talking about that kind of challenge. What made you, how old were you when you decided that I'm going for the stage?
Wow, that's a great question, and it's something I don't think anyone's ever asked me in any interview I've done, Julie. But I can remember some milestones, and so let's just start there. I remember that my parents taking me to one of the first Broadway tours that came to Columbus, and it was the rock opera, The Who's Tommy. And my parents brought all of us. We had literally the back row in the balcony. But I still vividly remember seeing that production and going, wow, this is amazing. And watching the audience's response to it, the feeling it was just an electric energy. And I went, wow, this is really, really amazing. I didn't know then that's what I wanted to do. I just remember feeling that energy and how palpable it was and going, this is really, really something I've never felt before in my life. So in the meantime, before that, I'd had interest in singing. My mom led our church choir when I was young, so I was always in the Christmas choir. I would get solos, but I didn't know if that was because, my mom was leading it or if it's because I was any good. And then in elementary school, they decided to do this mini musical, and it was all about George Washington. And so I got to be George Washington. And I remember vividly, there were some girls in the class that got mad because whenever we were rehearsing something, but there were kids in the other class that were the soloists, the teacher would just let me sing. But I didn't know what any of that meant. And the girls were like, well, how come Joe gets to sing everything? How come Joe gets to do everything? And I didn't care. I was just like, well, yeah, that's fine. Let them sing too. I didn't understand. And I wasn't trying to understand. I was just like, I like singing, so I'm going to sing. Now, when I got to middle school, that's when it got bad. And so there were kids that would pick on other kids because they were different or they had different things that they liked. And so I stopped, and I would purposely get myself into trouble in music class so I wouldn't sing.
Wow.
I was afraid, and I was already different. I mean, I'm a first generation Arab American man. And so I was already different. I grew up in this small town that was very predominantly German. So like, here's all these Aryan looking people, and then there's me. And not on top of that, do I look different? I also sing. So I didn't want to stand out. I wanted to just be status quo. And so I came back to the art when I was a freshman, and there was a senior who really kind of took me under his wing. And I got to know him, and he, he had no fear because he was older. And so I had that guidance, and I came back to it. But I was afraid to say, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until my senior year of high school, my school decided to do a full-scale musical for the first time in 16 years. And they did a production called Will Rogers Follies, and I got cast as Will. And if you're familiar with the show, or if you're not, 80% of the show is Will Rogers. And so it was quite the trial by fire. And then I was very fortunate that the head of the music department at Ohio Wesleyan University the vocal music department came to see the show, because another one of another prospective student was in the show, actually cast as my lead, as my love interest. And he came up to me afterwards. This doesn't happen anymore. You know, he came up to me and said, wow, I would really like to work with you, and I would really love for you to study with me at Ohio Wesleyan.
Wow. See,
So
so you were blessed, like you said, because that doesn't happen. You know, that rarely happens that somebody sees you perform and just gives you an opportunity at such a young age to do. You know, Joe, you know, I know you, and I know that you give a lot of people opportunities too, and and it's probably because of the pay it forward. You know,
absolutely.
that someone took the time to pull you along and to bring you, and you know, and this is the first time I've heard that story, and that's why I asked you, you know, about it, because like I say, this in all this segment of Let's Talk Theater, I don't, you know, we're not just going to be talking about, you know, our shows and what we're doing. I wanted to really get into the heart of why we do theater, you know, and why those of us that want to pay it forward and bring it on. You brought up something interesting that I just want to piggyback off of, and you talked about how you like a first generation Arab. Now, keeping in mind that, what kind of difficulties did you find it difficult to get roles, or did they, when you went outside of, you know, where you were at and got out, because you have been all over, you've done what, you've worked with over 200 theater productions,
Mhm.
okay, in your young lifetime,
Bless
and
you.
so it's, you know, what challenges, and did you find, if you found any,
Mhm.
what challenges did you find as being really a minority
Mhm.
in a theater world
Mhm.
that is predominantly white?
Right.
How did that affect you? And if it did affect you,
Mhm.
how did you overcome those challenges
Mhm.
that you were still able to do over 200
Yeah.
productions?
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel very fortunate that because um, I most people, when I tell them I'm Arab American, they don't see that. You know, so I'm 50% Arab, and then I'm also Italian and also Native American. But my skin tone doesn't lead people to believe any of the Native American or the Arab side. They just think I'm Italian or Greek. But I'm very proud of my ethnicity. I'm very proud of my background. But I would have to tell you that as a performer, it probably helped me way more than it hindered me. The only time I've noticed it is when I've been trying to move into, when I was trying to move beyond being on the stage. I felt like sometimes I was getting the short side of the stick when it would come to being heard by board members. I felt like it was going to be used against me at a couple of places where I held administrative positions. And so you have a choice, right? You can make people aware of what you believe is bias. And you can also then identify if that's not going to change, even though you've done everything you can do to inspire change. You can move and try to find a better place to be. Do I feel like it has been used against me? Yeah, I do. But also, I'm not going to sit there and wallow in it. I tried to do things about it. And when I recognized that even though I was trying to do something about it, it wasn't going to allow me to do what I hoped I could do at that organization, I moved on. And so I am grateful for all of the obstacles that have been put in my way. But I'm also very passionate about making sure that anything that happened to me that I feel like was not necessary or inappropriate, I'm not going to allow that to happen on my watch if I have control over my environment and what's going on as far as programming is concerned, and what's going on as far as staffing is concerned at the organizations that I currently represent.
You know, right now in our society, especially here in America, we're dealing with um, systematic racism coming to the forefront uh, in regards to what's been happening to people of color and minorities for generations and hundreds of years here in America. And theater itself, when it started way over 2,000 years ago, one of its primary roles at the time when when it was started, the playwrights focused on social issues and used the platform of theater to express what was happening in the world, what was happening where they lived in society, and the not only the good but the bad, and changes and changes have been made and were made based on the voice of the theater in the past, in the future. It should. What do you feel, Joe? Especially, and I'm really glad that you talked about how the challenges for people, because I'm African American, I'm Native American, and there's some white in there somewhere, okay? And the first thing that people see from me, of course, is my dark skin.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, one of the things I know, the challenges for me has always been, first place, I'm a writer, so I never really cared about being up front and center, and went into it knowing too that with my dark skin, the chances of me getting cast up front and center would be pretty dim, unless that role called for a degrading, in my opinion, role for me to play based on the color that they see.
Mm-hmm.
Because another African American that would be lighter, that was light skinned, would have a whole different type of a role
Mm-hmm.
than I would
Mm-hmm.
as a dark skinned
Mm-hmm.
woman. So I focus mostly on the playwriting and the writing of the words that change society. What do you feel are this is a two-parter. What do you feel is the theater obligation right now in regards to our social issues, systematic racism, Black Lives Matter, and what should the role be for theater companies right now? What should we be doing in regards to that, when we know that the platform that we stand on in regards to theater started as a social platform
Mm-hmm.
against injustices of
Right.
people?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about that. This is something that's been a part of the ABCs of me for the better part of my 20 years as a professional artist. I had the good fortune of serving as the associate producer for the first Columbus National Gay and Lesbian Theater Festival in the early 2000s, and that had a significant impact on how I see art being used as a vehicle to shine a spotlight on injustice. And so it's been a passion project of mine to assist other organizations that are trying to shine a light on different cultures, and also diversity and inclusion. I've had the good fortune of working with you, Julie, when you were doing the Columbus Black Theater Festival at the Columbus Performing Arts Center. I've also worked with the South Asian Theater Festival for the past 5 years. And, I've also worked on a couple of projects with what's an organization called Stage Right Theatrics, which, leans to the right. I want to make sure that every voice can be heard. Diversity and inclusion really truly means that. And I'm a very passionate ally for diversity and inclusion. One of the wonderful things that I love about working for the city of Dublin is that they have been working on and are now fully rolling out for the next 18 months a series of programs which are focused specifically on that, making sure that everyone who works for the city of Dublin goes through a rigorous diversity and inclusion training. And when they brought me in, that was one of the things that I said to them. I said, we are going to make sure that what we are putting on the stage truly represents the depth and breadth of this community. And we've been able to put on productions which are focusing on what is going on in the world today, which unfortunately really hasn't changed much from, from what was going on with the original, um, uh, what we could call the original civil rights movement. So we actually celebrated Juneteenth by doing a adaptation of Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. We're about to do a live stream performance of something called, we're calling it Emancipation, and it's based off of the 1876 speech that Frederick Douglass gave when they were commemorating the Freedmen's Monument at Lincoln Park in Washington, D.C. The Abbey and the city of Dublin fully supported me when the Abbey Theatre of Dublin participated in this year's Columbus Black Theatre Festival. The Abbey Theatre of Dublin also participated in this year's South Asian Theatre Festival. So again, I'm just very grateful that I work for an organization that understands what my passions are, and they understand that that's the way that I believe that theater should be operating now. Let's talk about it. Let's use art as a mechanism to generate awareness and stimulate conversation. The curtain closed on large gatherings due to COVID-19. The Abbey Theatre of Dublin worked creatively to take our shows all online. We started with virtual auditions, and then we went to virtual rehearsals, and now we're recording and actually streaming performances on the stage. And I'm really, really excited about that the Abbey Theatre is bringing the performing arts still directly to the Central Ohio community through the Virtual Theater Project. And we've already produced 8 shows. We've also participated in other virtual initiatives such as the Columbus Black Theatre Festival and the South Asian Theatre Festival. And we have a slate of 8 additional virtual theater productions that we're going to be putting on between now and the end of 2020. And I'm really, really excited to share that. And because the best part about that is it ties back into what we were talking about with diversity and inclusion, because we're featuring, with our production that we did for the Columbus Black Theatre Festival, we're featuring a young African-American female performer. We have featured an older African-American male portraying on Juneteenth Martin Luther King, as well as now upcoming this weekend, Frederick Douglass. And we've also done some work with a young Filipino man who did a one-person show for the South Asian Theatre Festival. So I love how we're hitting all the dots. We're still providing substantive theater storytelling for the community while also promoting diversity and inclusion.
So talk to us about the New Albany Youth Theater. What is it? What are your goals on that? And how does your goals fit into your vision for the youth?
So I had the good fortune of doing some after-school residencies in the New Albany School District in 2015 and 2016. They brought me in to do a project that I'm really passionate about, called musical theater creation. So I collaborate with youth artists and help facilitate the creation of a brand new musical. And I've done that in multiple school districts. It's really, really amazing to watch these kids and show them their power. Like, you can do this, you can create this story, and hey, what type of music fits this? So I had a really tremendous time working with them on that project. It was in their intermediate, I think it was their middle school. And then a few years later, some of the parents that were involved in that, or who had students involved in that project, reached out to me and said, hey, we've got a summer initiative that needs some help. Do you think you can help us? And I said, yeah, sure. And then as the conversations continued, like, well, can you just take it over? And I said, yeah, sure, we can do that. So for 2 years, I worked on the New Albany youth musical that happens in the summer while I was still at CATCO as kids. When I left CATCO to come over to Dublin, those parents said, would you be interested in still keeping this? And I said, if you can work it out with CATCO, then yes, I would be happy to continue this on. And so they talked about it with CATCO. CATCO acquiesced. And then I said, well, this can't go under Dublin because it's not Dublin. And so we founded a brand new theater company. It's got its nonprofit status. And so this is continuing on something that really began 5 or 6 years ago. And you never have any idea. It's like, you throw a rock and then the ripples, the butterfly effect, all those things. But again, I didn't have these types of opportunities when I was young, so I'm very passionate about providing them. As I told you, my school had limited resources when it came to the arts in the area that I grew up. That's not the case there anymore. Arts have grown up. Arts have really exploded everywhere. What was really important to me is that we were able to provide an alternative to what the school programming was in New Albany, because I feel very similar to those kids, because my father worked in downtown Columbus. Last thing he wanted to do was come home and then drive back to Columbus so I could have some arts opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
So I was limited to what was provided by my community. I'm not saying woe is me. I still had opportunities, but I didn't have anywhere near the depth and breadth of opportunities that kids did who grew up, in Columbus or in a suburb of Columbus. These New Albany kids, and I'm not saying woe is me to them either, but they're running through the same thing. Their parents work downtown. The last thing they want to do is drive home and then take their kid back downtown. So eliminate the distance, and provide them some substantive theater education training from theater professionals. So you're trying to diversify their skill set, and also let them understand that it does take a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise an artist. Mm-hmm. So give them opportunities to interact with other artists so they understand that it's not a copy-paste job. Yeah, you can have the same drama instructor in middle school. Yeah, you can have the same drama instructor in high school. But you need to learn to work with different people, because that's going to prepare you for life even beyond the stage. Mm-hmm. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm also passionate about providing some diversity and inclusion in New Albany. I mean, the show we were going to do there before the pandemic hit was a production of Aladdin Jr. And we were very insistent. And we had told them in the audition, we had 60 kids audition. We said, look, we are going to cast this as appropriately as we possibly can, and we were very fortunate that we had a South Asian man that was going to play Aladdin, a young man, and then we had a young African-American woman who was going to play Jasmine. So we are not afraid to make sure that we are providing opportunities for the best person. All right. That's regardless of color. That's regardless of gender. The last year that I produced it under the CATCO moniker, we had an African-American girl who played Willy Wonka. So I don't shy away from this. It's whatever is going to put the shows and subsequently all the youth artists involved in the best possible position to succeed. That is my why. And I think that if you do that, then the good things are going to come your way.
Before we leave, could you tell us, tell our audience, how do they get involved with the Abbey?
Great question. So you can email me, jbishara@dublin.oh.us. But if you want to see what we've been up to first, I'm really excited that we actually have a page on the City of Dublin's website, which is an archive of all the virtual theater projects that we've offered for free. So you can go to dublinohiousa.gov. And then when you see the Parks and Recreation tab, click on that. The first thing you'll see is Abbey Theatre. And then, so once it goes there, there'll be a tab. The first thing it'll show you is our upcoming shows. And then there'll be another tab that says Virtual Theater Performances. You can go there and you can scroll down and watch all these really great things that we've been able to provide the community thus far since the pandemic began.
All those parents and those youth that are listening on how can they get involved with the New Albany Youth Theater? I want to know.
Okay, so you're more than welcome to check out our website, which is newalbanyouththeater.org. You can see what we have upcoming. If you click on the show tab, you can actually watch our 2 virtual musicals that we produced this summer, and they're really, really fun and really exciting. And you might want to check that out because we're going to continue to offer those initiatives. We actually have a fall initiative that starts this upcoming Saturday. There's still 2 spots left. But you can also get my email address there and you can talk to me about what's going on in New Albany Youth Theater, how it can be beneficial for your child, how the skill sets that we're going to teach them are going to transcend the stage.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe.
Thank you, Julie. Have a good one.
That's it.